Yeah, probably the least favorite.
Okay, that's fair.
I just don't think that one has a high rewatchability factor. I saw it once. I don't think I want to watch it again. Unless you want me to.
Maybe the end.
Maybe the end. All right. We're going to take a quick break now. We'll get back with my movies. All right. All right. So now I want to give my top 5 Christmas movies for people who don't like Christmas movies. Now, I don't think in my list you'll find any of the all-out Christmas classics. I think those are a whole different kind of category on their own. So you won't see any of like It's a Wonderful Life or even like A Christmas Story on my list. What I want to cover is just movies. For me, Christmas movies are my favorite. Out of every genre of movie, I feel they're very down there because they're either, like I said earlier, kind of a cash grab, a little overly cheesy, or there's just something about them that the elements to making a good movie aren't really there. So that's sometimes why I don't like Christmas movies. So when I can find movies that have just a little bit of Christmas in it, and if you put them on around Christmas time, your entire family's not going to be like, why are we even watching this? It has a little bit of Christmas, a hint of Christmas, you could say. And I think you could put these on, and at least maybe half your family will enjoy it, which is a pretty good ratio for a movie you pop in during Christmas. I feel like with my family, it's kind of hard to find a movie around the holidays that we all like. Our long-standing tradition has been to watch A Christmas Eve on Sesame Street every year. That's like our go-to movie, and it was basically just a PBS special back in the day. And we've since found a YouTube link that we can watch it while we open gifts, and that's kind of our thing. But aside from Christmas movies, there aren't a whole lot that we all like. So at number 5 on my list, I'm going with Bad Santa, which is a very crude movie.
Wasn't expecting that one.
But
checks out.
Underneath all the Christmas elements, it's still just a funny comedy. And I think for people who don't like Christmas movies, if you can watch something that's going to make you laugh no matter what, and still kind of fit that Christmas theme, it's a win-win. And it's one that I usually watch every single year. And there's a lot of kind of funny, memorable moments, and it has a high rewatchability factor. But again, it's just a funny movie, beside the fact that it's Billy Bob Thornton playing a bad Christmas Santa at the mall. I just think it's a funny movie. They made a sequel to it. Wasn't as good, but still, the original holds up after all these years. Have you seen Bad Santa?
I have, but it's been a long time. We haven't watched it yet this year.
We will watch it if you're down for it.
I'll always watch anything.
At number 4, I'm going with Home Alone.
Okay.
Now, I don't consider Home Alone to be a full-on Christmas movie, mainly due to the fact that they've made part 2, part 3, part 4, whatever. They've made sequels to this. And the first one, if they played Home Alone in July, I don't think that a whole lot of people would flinch. You would just see it on TV like, oh, it's Home Alone. There's a little bit of Christmas in it. But I don't think you'd be as weirded out if you saw, like, the Santa Claus on in July. You'd be like, why are they showing a Christmas movie in July? Home Alone, you could watch it really whenever and it'd be all right. But also, it has that little bit of Christmas in it that what actually happens in the movie happens around Christmas. And then again, it's just a funny movie besides all that stuff. There's a lot of memorable parts to it. It's been out for 30 years now, so clearly it can stand the test of time. But even if you don't like the cheesy Christmas elements to it, it's still a funny movie, and it's a movie that holds up. So what are your thoughts on Home Alone?
I like Home Alone. It's not one of my favorites. Like, I'll watch it, but I mean, it wasn't on my list, so it's not something that I like have to watch every Christmas. I think I would, but I don't go out of my way to turn it on.
I think for me and my family, the reason we can all agree on Home Alone sometimes is because it has a lot of slapstick humor. Like, there's not much thought that goes into getting the joke of somebody getting hit in the face with a paint bucket.
Yes.
Like, you watch that, you get it. No matter what language you speak, no matter how old or how young you are, that joke you get.
Yes.
So with other Christmas movies that don't have that element, like, that's just an instant thing. So I think that kind of works well for our family, because my dad has a really hard time watching any movie, let alone a Christmas movie. So I think, like, one of his favorite shows back in the day was The Three Stooges. So it has that kind of humor into this movie. So I think this is one of the only ones he can kind of stomach to watch.
Will he stay awake through it?
No, probably not. The thing with my dad, he'll watch like 20 minutes of any movie and he's out.
Fall asleep
cold.
in a theater.
Yes. I think the first movie he ever went to when I was a kid was probably The Lion King in 94, and he fell asleep. So that's kind of his thing. At number 3 on my list, I'm going with Die Hard. Have you ever seen Die Hard?
I don't think I have.
What happens in this movie just happens to occur during Christmas. So there's a whole debate
Here we go.
every single year of like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? It's not really a Christmas movie because they've made many sequels to Die Hard, the same way they did with Home Alone. It just happens to happen around a Christmas party. But this is my thing. Reason why the Christmas genre is trash. That we fight so hard for movies like Die Hard and Home Alone to be Christmas movies. That means there aren't a whole lot of Christmas movies for us to watch every year, that we force even just any kind of movie that has any kind of element of Christmas to being a Christmas movie. I think that's why we get into the debate every single year. And also it's kind of tradition to argue about it.
Okay, so if your whole thing is that it's not a Christmas movie, if it just takes place at Christmas, then half of my movies wouldn't have been Christmas movies. The holiday only really takes place at Christmas time. Nothing like the holidays, 4 Christmases. So what makes a Christmas movie then? I feel like if they're taking place at Christmas, it kind of almost makes the whole thing a Christmas movie because the colors are different. You've got trees and just singing. Like, I just feel like if it's set anytime around Christmas, then it's therefore kind of a Christmas movie.
I think that's what we made the genre out to be. I think a true Christmas movie, the entire plot is embedded in Christmas, and there's no way you can get around it without having Christmas. So like something like Miracle on 34th Street, or something like I say Elf, Santa Claus or Elf is a straight up Christmas movie.
Okay.
Because he is from the North Pole. So anything that has to be embedded in the idea of Christmas, you couldn't take it out. Like any of those movies you could probably plug into anywhere else and then, work still.
Okay.
But if it has anything to do with Santa, if it has anything to do with elves or the actual story of Christmas is what makes it a Christmas movie.
All right. Thank you for clarifying.
So there we go. But Die Hard, great action movie. Even though it came out in the 80s, it still kind of holds up. And probably my favorite Bruce Willis movie. I'm not a big Bruce Willis fan. I think for me, like action movies, I don't know, I get kind of tired of the same old thing. But Die Hard kind of did this genre first. And there was a lot of there's a really great Movies That Made Us episode that came out on Netflix of the whole story about this movie and how it was really kind of the first big major movie for Bruce Willis. Like, he wasn't an action star before this. He was doing like soap operas before that. So every action movie has kind of pretty much tried to be like Die Hard since. So again, happens around Christmas. You can get away with it. I'd say go for Die Hard.
All right.
At number 2, another one that happens around Christmas is Batman Returns. And probably my favorite. A lot of Batman movies have come out since, but before The Dark Knight, this was easily my favorite Batman movie, mainly because it has the Penguin, it has Catwoman, and overall, it looks the most like a comic book Batman that I kind of envisioned in my head as a kid, and it has a lot of those kind of cool production elements and kind of throwbacks to like the classic, comic books, but it was never cheesy in any way, and what they did kind of with The Dark Knight later was make it more dramatic and realistic, but this one had a little more of what I liked as a kid to watch. And you've never seen any of the original Batmans?
If I have, they're not sticking out in my head.
Okay, so I will now force you to watch all the Batman and come back and report.
Okay. I can agree to that.
Would you watch all of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not scary.
Or are they?
They're not a horror movie.
That's true.
Are they? Last year's Joker scared me, so we'll go. That's another story. If they're that level, then no.
No, they're not.
Okay.
At number 1, my favorite movie that feels like Christmas, even though it's not a Christmas movie, is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Now, Christmas is a big part of, I'd say, a lot of the Harry Potter movies.
The books even more so, because I've read all the books multiple times, and the Christmas scenes in the books are way better than they are in the movie. They just get downplayed to like 5 minutes in the movie. But
there are some important elements in the first one, like that happen around Christmas, because he gets the cloak from, it's a Christmas present.
Yes.
So, and aside from that, kind of watching these movies on Christmas Day feels a little bit special because they are just so big and cinematic, and like it's this whole Harry Potter world that you're watching. It kind of feels like a holiday movie because it's usually they're all cold and then robes and stuff. So it kind of has that feeling of like a holiday movie and a perfect time to watch them. And they used to always come out around November, December when they would come out. So there's something that I associate Harry Potter with being around the holidays. And if you put these movies on, it just kind of makes like Christmas Day or Christmas morning feel a little bit Christmassy, even though it's not a straight up Christmas movie.
I would agree with that. There are no arguments here. You know I love the Harry Potter movies.
And I was a little late on the Harry Potter movies because you got into going to the midnight screenings.
Yeah, I read the books. I would pre-order the books. This is a funny story. When I was, however old I was when the 7th one came out, I pre-ordered it, I bought it. And then, when you're like a preteen, you're a little sassy. Instead of getting grounded, my parents took away my Harry Potter book. That's how into the books I was.
Dang. I've never been punished in that kind of way.
That's how you punish a nerd.
Well, anyway, those are our lists. I feel like there's some people who maybe want to hear more about like classic Christmas movies, but I don't know. I just think that when you get into those lists of like what the best Christmas movies are, you're kind of going to have the same ones over and over. So I didn't want to get into that. I wanted to do a little bit differently. And I liked your list because it's not your traditional Christmas movies. For you who is such a big fan of the holiday and such a big fan of this kind of genre of movies, I feel like your picks were a lot different that people who maybe wouldn't have watched those movies would enjoy them.
Yes.
And it gives somebody something different to watch.
Yes. And again, honorable mention goes to Bad Moms Christmas, but don't watch it with your children around.
Well, an honorable mention for me was going to be National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, such a good one.
Because above everything, that's just a funny movie.
It is.
So that was very right on for being in my list, but that's an honorable mention.
All right.
All right. Well, there we go. Next, we're going to review Happiest Season. Ready?
Ready.
All right, we're going to get into a movie review now, talking about Happiest Season, which just came out on Hulu. Both of us were very excited for this movie, pretty much because of the cast alone. You got Kristen Stewart, Allison Brie, Dan Levy, the list goes on and on. But before we get into our review, here's just a little bit of Happiest Season.
I'm so excited. I can't believe I'm finally going to meet everyone.
There's something that we should talk about. Hi! I didn't tell my parents I'm gay.
So who do they think I am?
This is Harper's orphan friend, Abby.
Yes, of course. They're there.
You're so brave.
Oh. Riley! Harper. This is Abby. Abby is my
Orphan. Roommate. I am an orphan, but we live together. As friends. Like acquaintances.
Oh, please stop.
Yeah.
All right, so when we sat down to watch this movie, we had already seen some early reviews on it and saw it was doing pretty well. And I think we were both excited, mainly because we had just come off watching Schitt's Creek, and we're a big fan of Dan Levy's character in that, David. And overall, the cast in this was just so many great people that were like, how could this movie not be great? That's kind of what we thought going into this, right?
Yeah, we were really excited. Well, it was also a new Christmas movie and one that we were both excited about. And Dan Levy, again, just having finished Schitt's Creek, we were like, yes, I'll watch anything with him in it right now.
And the premise of this movie is that a girl played by Mackenzie Davis is dating Kristen Stewart, and she takes her home to meet her family, but she hasn't told her family that she's gay.
Right.
And that's kind of where this whole movie plays out. You pretty much find that out in like the first, 15, 20 minutes of the movie?
Yeah.
And this movie was a little bit sadder than I was expecting.
I didn't laugh as much as I wanted to.
I thought it was going to be a full-on straight comedy.
Yeah.
And I think they sold it a little bit more as like Dan Levy having a bigger role in it. I think because he is coming off the success of Schitt's Creek, they were like, Dan Levy in this movie with Kristen Stewart. And I felt like it lacked a little bit of him, which I was a little bit let down by, because I wanted it to be, from the trailer, it looked like they're best friends and he's in the movie the entire time. I feel like you get him very little in like the first act, the second act, and it's kind of more in the third act where he's really a part of it.
Right.
So I felt a little bit let down by that. And it wasn't as funny as I was expecting, but I don't think that was a bad thing. I was kind of looking back on it today, and I just think if I went into it a little bit different, I would have enjoyed it more at the time. What did you think?
Yeah, I read one review that said it wasn't as funny as expected, and it was just kind of like bogged down by some of the relationship stuff. Mm-hmm. And I would agree with that. I still thought it was good, but it won't be making my favorites list.
do you think it's a Christmas movie you would rewatch?
I'd rewatch it.
I think so too. And I think initially after we finished it,